Good morning students, welcome to online class. Hope you are keeping well by the blessing of God. So guys, once again I am with you and today I am going to teach you English literature and from your NCERT book Beehive chapter number 5, and the title is a poem. It is a poem and the title is A Legend of the Northland by Fabe Carey. Guys, you open your notebook and note down the spelling of the poetess Fabe Carey. P-H-O-E-B-E. P-H-O-E-B-E. Fabe Carey. C-A-R-Y. The spelling is P-H-O, but you have to pronounce it as Fabe Carey. Fabe Carey, she was an American poetess and she was born in 1824 and died in 1871. So, guys, this is a poem. It is a folklore. Folklore means story of rural areas, folk story. Folklore, rural areas, countryside story. And the poem, it has been presented as a form of ballad. Ballad means, you can write down, note down, B-A-L-L-A-D. Ballad. Ballad means long story or long poem. Long poem. It is a form of poetry, but it narrates a story, that is called ballad. You can write that it is a long poem which narrates a story. And a legend of the Northland, it has been presented in a form of ballad, but it is a folk tale. Folk tale means related to countryside stories. So I'm going to read the poem before you. It is a long poem. So guys, today I will read the poem and I will tell you the content of the poem. And in my next lecture, I will tell you the theme, the central idea of the poems, and followed by question answers. So guys, those who have book, you can open the book. You can go through the book and poem chapter number 5. And those who don't have, you please pay attention. Away, away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through, where they harness the swift reindeer to the sledge when it snows, and the children look like bears' cubs in their funny furry clothes. They tell them a curious story. I don't believe it is true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. Once, when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about it preaching just as he did, he came to the door of a cottage in traveling round the earth, where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth, and being faint with fasting, and for the day was almost done, he asked her from her store of cakes to give him a single one. So she made a very little cake, but as it baking lay, she looked at it, and though it seemed too large to give away, therefore she needed another and still a smaller one. But it looked, when she turned it over, and large as the first had done. Then she took a tiny scrap of dough and rolled it flat and baked it thin as a wafer, but she couldn't part with that, for she said, my cakes that seem too small when I eat of them myself are yet too large to give away. So she put them on the shelf. The good Saint Peter grew angry, for he was hungry and faint, and surely such a woman was enough to provoke a saint. And he said, "You are far too selfish to dwell in human form, to have both food and shelter and fire to keep you warm. Now you shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food by boring and boring and boring all day in the hard dry wood." Then up she went through the chimney, never speaking a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker, for she was changed to a bird. She had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same, but all the rest of her clothes were burned black as a coal in the flame. And every country schoolboy, he seen her in the wood where she lives in the trees till this very boring and boring for food. This is the complete story, students, and it is a folk tale, and the content of the story is that once upon a time in Northland, here the poet or the poetess has presented Northland means we can guess the northern part of Europe. That means the North Pole, maybe Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Finland. Most of the time, most of the months of the year, those places, those regions are covered with snow, very cold, intense cold. So the readers, they can guess that Northland means the North Pole or the extreme northern side of Europe. Now, once upon a time, Saint Peter, he was the disciple or apostle of Jesus Christ. Guys, I think you have heard the name of Saint Peter. His name is in Bible. We find his name in Bible. He is the apostle or disciple of Jesus Christ. So one day in North Pole, once upon a time, because in the starting of my teaching I told you that it is a folklore. So once upon a time, one day Saint Peter, he came to the doorstep of a little lady in Northland, and she was baking cakes. Saint Peter, he was very hungry and he was very tired. He became very weak because he was on fasting. It was nearly the end of the day. That means it was twilight or dusk. So whole day he walked, and at last he noticed a cottage, and he is standing at the cottage door. Then he noticed a little lady, and she is baking cakes. So he asked for only a small piece of cake because he is very hungry and he is feeling very tired because of due to fast. Whole day he was in empty stomach. But this selfish lady, she did not give him a small piece of cake. So as a result or as consequence, the hungry saint, that means Saint Peter, he cursed this lady, selfish lady, that you don't deserve this body of human, or you don't deserve to live on this earth in human form. So At once I am cursing you, you will become a woodpecker. And throughout your life or rest of your life, you will be a woodpecker. You will bore and bore and bore a thick and big trunk of a tree till your death. So at once the lady, she turned into a woodpecker, and till then, all day long, she used to bore and bore and bore a big trunk of a tree. What woodpecker does, you know, whole day she used to bore the trunk of a tree. So this is the synopsis of the poem or the content of the poem, and there are two characters we find. One is a little lady in a northland, that means according to the poet has presented the northern side of Europe or northern part of Europe. Maybe it is North Pole covered with snow. Intense cold is there. Eskimos, usually the place of Eskimos. So, and the other character is Saint Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ. So this is the the content of the poem or synopsis of the poem. So students,